So we have today, looks like no items to be removed from the agenda. We have the approval of today's agenda. We have approval of last meeting minutes. We actually have 4 sets of minutes. We have, Ms. Kayla has said we have March 19th, March 25th, March 26th. Also on March 26th, we have a closed session. So we have 4 sets of minutes that we'll be approving and signing today. We have no financials today. Other items for consideration, we will be having a presentation by Ms. Hopkins-Will and Ms. Beatles. This is a tree trimming and removal services, county rights of way renewal award, and then employee services, Brian, employee of the quarter recognition, very important event, and then employee services, Bryant is also going to give us a quarter update. So, and then at 10 o'clock we will be going into a rezoning hearing. We have 2 cases today. So I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
So moved.
Second the motion, sir.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. So we'll go right into the first item for is Ms. Kim and Ms. Brand.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So this first one, we had we bid out ITB 2024-5, and this is for tree trimming and removal services of county rights of way. We received 3 proposals, one from Hodges Tree Trimming LLC, one from True Fast Tree Services, and one from Vought Tree Services. There were 2 projects specifically. We went with the lowest price of both projects. So the first one will go to Hodges Tree Trimming, and the second one would go to True Fast Tree Services. If I can actually tell you what the streets are, if you'd like. The first one is Prairie Ridge Road, Rocky Ridge Lane to Roadrunner Lane, and the second one is for Common 2, and that's for the Shelvin Rock Road, South High Ridge to South Gregg Road. So we would like, we ask your recommendation, or our recommendation is to award to both Hodges and True Fast Tree Services.
Okay, any comments or questions?
None for me, sir.
You okay with that, Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, and I'd make a motion to award the bid as
Okay.
presented.
Second that.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Commissioner.
The next item on the agenda is the employee services employee of the quarter recognition. Ms. Amber, do you want to? I'm going to go into that. Okay, so it's my duty then to announce our winner, and we've got a certificate and a gift card that we want to make sure to get out. So Mr. Hannon Cummins is our first employee of the quarter for 2024. He was nominated by multiple members of this department for his dedication and work ethic. Hannon stepped up without complaint when they were short-handed to make sure tasks were done in a timely manner. This meant he took on much higher workload of inspections on a daily basis. Often traveling from one end of the county to the other, he's gone above and beyond for his department and for the citizens of Christian County. So, Mr. Hannon, if you'll come up here with the 3 of us, we're going to give you an award. We're going to get some pictures taken, and we really appreciate Congratulations. How many years have you been with the county?
2 years.
2 years. Well, we're going to hope that you're going to be here 22 more years. So keep doubling those 2. So we've got a gift certificate, and we're going to get you in the middle and get a picture, and then
It's
a
the
gift
Prima.
card
It's a Prima.
for
Primas.
Primas.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Here in Ozark, you
I
can
like
use
the
Christian.
pictures you can take
use
me out.
Christian County. Okay.
All right, smile. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I believe that's the first time for me, because I've not only been here but three years plus now. But that's the most nominations that I've seen one person get in a quarter. I may be wrong, Amber, you may have. There may be more, but it seems
They all
like
came in very quick. That is the most in a quarter.
Okay, it just seemed like it to me. I think that's pretty amazing thing. So, all right, for the last thing on the item, it would then be, Ms. Amber, if you want to come up and give your first quarter employee services review.
I made copies for you of my report, but Kayla emailed them to you too, but I can give you a copy if you need it. If you want to follow along while I'm
Okay.
talking. I feel like I'm back in school again, standing up at the podium, giving my presentation, but.
That's good. That's good.
All right. Well, the very first quarter, one of the hardest things we do is, of course, we have to take all of those benefits that that everybody selected during open enrollment. We have to make sure that they're all correct, because all those new bills start coming in and the payroll deductions come through. So you got to give credit to Krista on that, and Maddie, of course, was helping her with that. Krista also got out all of our 1095C reports and successfully reported all of that to the IRS. One of the things that we're doing right now is we have an applicant tracking system and an onboarding system. So when we put out jobs, it feeds to other sites. We have built that. That takes a long time to build. All of our job descriptions are in there, all of our emails. It's a very, very detailed thing that we have done. And we love our program at Civic HR, and they're sunsetting that program. So we had to get a new one. It's called Criterion. And we are now transferring that over. So that's taking a lot of our time. We have meetings with them every week. And it's quite cumbersome because we were told that everything would transfer over, and it doesn't transfer over just right. So that's taking a lot of our time. And it is a good thing, though. They're going to offer some more things that Civic HR didn't. You can look at this list. Anything that you have questions about. Some highlights would be that we did the on-site biometric screening, and employees actually that had United Healthcare got $50 in United Healthcare rewards for participating in that. We did have a good turnout for that. We've got the special event and food truck license agreements pushed through. We were able to get out all of the policy reviews, and we had compliance with everybody signing that. We had 160 applications that we reviewed and received for this quarter. And of course, we conducted multiple interviews. I am partnering with maintenance. We have an outside engineer, and we had one of our insurance people come out and assess the gazebo for ADA compliance. They're looking right now at a legal aspect. Before we bring you suggestions on different ways that we can change this, we're looking right now at the legal aspect of what we absolutely have to do, because there's no reason to bring you anything until we know that it meets the requirements. And there's some mixed opinions on that, so we're trying to narrow that down for you before we bring you anything. IT, when we rolled out our new policy, there's a new ordering process for IT. We had to conduct trainings on that with all the elected officials and department heads. We did that this quarter. That was a success. And we did the first tornado drill that was 100% compliance. We did that. We filled 10 positions, and we have 21 open. You can look at is there anything questions about the HR side of that?
I just want to make a comment. Thanks for doing that drill, because then we had the real drill a week later, and you did very well.
Yeah, Phil blamed me for that. He said he was being funny about it. But I'm like, look, it was good timing. We knew what to do. And then looking at the purchasing, she had over 1,000 purchase orders this first quarter. Also, she would have also processed the ones that were for the end of the year for 2023, so she was doubly busy this quarter. She shows you all of the issued bids that she did, all of the new contracts, contract renewals. On the Purchasing update, she also presented, you'll notice that she presented at the Missouri Association of Counties, her and the Boone County Purchasing Manager. We put the new postage meter machine in our office, which brings us new faces. Any questions about her report? And then IT, which is so funny to me that it's always the shortest and takes up most of the time. So it is still a process. We are building, I mean, I can tell you 100% we have an internal IT team and they are doing a good job, but we are still building and still dealing with issues from the previous situation that we were in. One of the first things that we thought we could do was we moved our servers off-site. When we moved them, we immediately had problems. We worked with them for five months to try to fix the problem and slowly brought back our servers on-site. Now we have all of our major servers back on-site, and actually by the end of this week we'll have all servers completely back on-site. So with a lot of work to get them there, we troubleshooted to try to make them work, and then with a lot of work to bring them back. I say that because we were trying to we thought it was the best, and now we will have to find a backup, because now they're all on site, we will have to have an additional backup. But we are not sure why it didn't work, and many experts can't tell us why it worked, except for that initially when we were set up, something was not done correctly, and we don't know how to undo it. Bill said if we shut the county down for a week, he could probably fix it, but I keep telling him that's not an option. So. We migrated 911, which was a big deal because they were sharing a firewall with us, which wasn't the best plan. So we also had the fiber installed between the 3 main buildings. They did a Tyler Tech. We upgraded that server, which everybody was very mad that was not working well. And then when we finally switched over, it is working so much faster, and that worked really well. Cody and Jail Tracker, they had new software that they migrated to. They got 314, while they're dealing with all that, they still answered 314 service desk tickets. And you can see what we're still in progress on. We could list more, but those are the main things that we hope to accomplish moving in the near future. Any questions about IT?
Okay, any comments or questions?
No, sir.
Very good. And this number of 21 positions currently open, that's a little bit less than we've had.
It's actually a little bit more.
Oh, is it more?
Yeah. We usually have in the teens.
On the teams, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, we have an offer out. We have two offers out. So it really, if those move through, which they should, they're in background, it would be 19. So.
19. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. At this time, I think we're just on schedule to start our planning and zoning. We have 2 cases. Okay, we got a minute.
Posted as 10.
Yeah, okay. My watch is already running ahead of 10 o'clock. So you guys are my real watch. No.
Just want to keep you from
Sure.
On the one that we did today, that we denied, on the cover sheet, it listed the next address on the document itself, and on that it listed it as Ozarks.
Okay.
Just, I think it's Nixon, is it not?
I have to double check now. I'm doubting myself,
Would you
but
check that?
yeah.
All right, we're back in session. We're doing our Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and our first case today is case number 2023-0302 Windmill Holdings. And Ms. Todd, are you going to do that, or Ms. Scott?
I think I'll do that. I've been with this since the beginning. Take it with me to the end. All right. As you mentioned, we're looking at case number 2023-037. The applicant here is Windmill Holdings with Kyle Estes as the principal for that. He also has with him his representative Chris Wynn of CJW. Currently, the zoning on this property is A1 agriculture, and the request here is to create a PUD, planned unit development, at the site. I know that you all are familiar with this case and its location, and I'll go through that here fairly quickly. We've got a map here on the screen. You can see the surrounding land uses include some agriculture and residential. This is right near Fremont Hills, near CC and Fremont Road. The zonings nearby are A1, where it's located in the unincorporated county, and then it does have quite a bit of area that's located inside the city limits of Ozark. I don't necessarily have their particular zonings. Here's a closer view of this. You can see what the site looked like about maybe 3 years ago, based on the date of this aerial footage. And you can see that there's also an area of floodplain on the property. If we get a little closer, this is how the site looked. More recently, got an aerial photo, likely within the last year or so. You can see things have changed quite a bit. Quite a bit of development, probably over an acre of impervious coverage added to the site. And you can see that the structures and whatnot have certainly been upgraded and redone. So the applicant, as I mentioned, is proposing a PUD that's known as Cassidy Station at Estes Farms. Approval would allow for a mixed-use commercial and agricultural entity. We're looking at a 20-acre property. As you're also aware, the property has already been developed into a variety of commercial uses, and all this was done without proper building permits, compliance with zoning, or any environmental regulation. As it says, the development's a mix of uses, including a mercantile, floral shop, there's a one-bedroom apartment, an event venue, and a meat shop. And there are also some existing agricultural uses. There's a feed barn, and then there's some parking areas that are associated with the commercial uses. So just to get up to speed, on December 18th, the P&Z Commission reviewed the application for a PUD and took public comment at that hearing, at that meeting. Ultimately, the Commission determined that there needed to be a tabling of the case until a level 1 traffic impact study could be prepared by a qualified engineer. So they went ahead and tabled that meeting and agreed to resume its review on March 18th of this year. And prior to that next hearing, the applicant did provide the traffic impact study, also a revised version of the PUD plan and the site plan. And at that time, they had incorporated several of the suggestions that were put forth at the first hearing. Generally speaking, the PUD plan that's presented successfully addresses the various development aspects that are applicable to this site. The plan also does recognize the failure to obtain proper building permits, and it specifically spells out the penalties and required actions that would be needed to attain compliance. So everything is square on that point. The major issue of conflict that remains is the applicant's desire not to be required to surface parking areas and the drive access aisles according to the standard county requirements. So let's go back to the traffic study. CJW provided that level 1 traffic study, which is what was required by the P&Z Commission. Some notable findings and recommendations included that overall those findings were not supportive of taking a position where the county should require a developer's agreement for specific improvements to Fremont Road. Noted the posted speed limit on Fremont Road is 45 miles per hour. When you take into account the required site distances, associated with various turns and locations combined with the height of some existing obstructions that are between the two existing access points. It gave the following recommendation: that those two existing access points onto Fremont Road need to be designated specifically, one being entry only, using the southernmost access, and exit only for the northern point. Also, they supplied crash data for the past 5 years near the site. The most recent one listed was from April of 2022. The traffic engineer preparing the report states that utilizing a one-way entrance and exit should largely mitigate concerns regarding the potential for increased accidents. The report also points to the fact that the site plan calls for a total of 83 parking spaces, which should help assure that there are no street parking taking place. The traffic study was shared with Ozark Special Road District, and got some feedback from their contract engineer. That was reviewed by the county's own highway engineer, Miranda Beatles, and she took that into account in preparing her review. She conveyed her questions and concerns and got some additional information from CJW, and prepared a memo that was included in the staff report for both P&Z Commission and for you. She commented that the methodology used is appropriate and confirmed that the findings regarding the turn lanes are appropriate. She also believes the majority of concerns that are expressed by residents and Ozark Special Road District relate to the special events that take place, which produce extreme traffic scenarios which you really can't measure either in a level 1 or level 2 type study. If the site was to expand or develop even further, it might be appropriate then for the county to require a level 2 study based upon the degree of expansion. And referencing the special events, she urges the owners of Cassidy Station to plan in advance and request that law enforcement or contractors trained in traffic control assist with the flow of traffic on Fremont Road when there's anticipated traffic generation that's above the norm. Having heard that back on March 18th, the P&Z Commission, during its resumed review of the application and taking input from anyone in attendance, they voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval of this PUD to the County Commission. And they also recommended that certain changes be made as part of that recommendation. I've got them listed here. The applicant needs to include an exhibit map which depicts the various development areas of the entire PUD. Talking about an extra exhibit that shows the entire 20-acre property where we have the commercial area and the ag area. The plan should also include a statement that calls out that there's a 35-foot no-build area which extends from the existing right-of-way onto the subject property along the side which adjoins Fremont Road. This helps to preserve right-of-way and accommodates the needs of the Ozark Transportation Organization for that type of road future classification. They also wanted that any verbiage regarding a variance allowing for gravel needs to be removed from the plan, but also to allow for pervious pavers as an acceptable substitute. The plan should include a statement saying that signage shall be placed which clearly indicates that the southernmost point of access to the property is enter only, and also that the northernmost point of access clearly indicates exit only. And the plan should include provisions which require for any exterior lighting that might be added to the site needs to be designed to aim downward and inward in order to avoid unnecessary light pollution to neighbors. There was one correction in section 1.13, simply removing the last word that was there and replacing it with building codes and development regulations. Also, the site plan needs to include a designation on it that notes and identifies the placement of the exit and entry signs. And then Also on the site plan, the indication for gravel should be removed from the drives and parking areas on the site plan. So when the County Commission approves or adopts a PUD plan, what you'd be doing is amending the zoning regulations by adding a specific PUD, and it contains provisions specific to this development alone, allowing for the combination of uses to take place while maintaining the integrity of the greater regulation. A revised PUD plan was submitted following that March 18th meeting, and it contains most of the changes called for by the P&Z Commission's recommendation. It does not, however, reflect the requirement that all parking areas and drive aisles be constructed with dust-free hard surface, which is the requirement in the zoning regulations. And Section 1.10 of the plan and the site plan are in conflict with the requirements listed in the recommendation from the P&Z Commission. The applicant maintains his opposition to meeting the county standards for parking areas. The actual verbiage that's included in the revised PUD plan is shown here. It says, while the county requirements call for all parking and drive aisles to be hard surface, the development is requesting to leave the drive aisles and parking areas gravel unless shown otherwise on Exhibit A. Over 85% of the PUD is still used for ag purposes. The only access to the agricultural part of the PUD is through the access off Fremont Road and down the drive aisle through the commercial portion of the PUD. This results in farm equipment routinely using the drive aisles and parking areas. These areas are also used for loading and unloading of farm animals for transport. Additionally, Building E, which is located adjacent to the drive aisle and the parking lot, is a stable actively being used for horses. So that's what it says right now, and that's in conflict with the recommendation. P&Z Commission really saw no legitimate reason for the county to deviate from the standard requirements and therefore made no allowance in its recommendation. Staff believes that there's room for the PUD to be further amended in such a way as to at least reduce the area that would be understood to require paving. Within that site plan submitted at the March 18th hearing, we take note that the parking area shown contains many more spaces than would be required under our regulation. And it also includes some areas beyond the required driveway and access aisles that wouldn't necessarily need to be paved to our surface requirements either. That doesn't mean that those areas beyond the required number of spaces could not be considered overflow and provide extra spaces for special events, for instance, and they could remain gravel. So by adding some better definition to the requirement, we believe that the Commission can maintain the integrity of the zoning regulation, but at the same time reduce the burden on the developer and perhaps better accommodate his desire to have access between the commercial and agricultural uses. So here's gives you an idea of what I was just talking about. The assumption was that all of the colored areas would be required to be hard surface. The areas in red are kind of extra. So what I would suggest is creating an additional exhibit which defines what really needs to be hard surface, and I think that probably cuts out 30% or more of what we were talking about. This is an aerial photo. It shows towards the bottom of the picture, you see that rectangle between the two fenced areas. It seems to be the main access to get to this ag area. So we would be talking about leaving that area right near there in gravel. This overlays that parking area on what appears to already have gravel on it, giving you an idea of the reduction in area there as well. And ultimately this is the exhibit that we would suggest adding to the PUD, that simply defines the areas that need to be hard surfaced. This is the altered text of section 1.10, which removes what I had read earlier that was submitted, but it explains that the area to be hard surfaced is defined in Exhibit D. The index would also need to be modified to add Exhibit D required hard surface areas, and the site plan would then have the gravel designations removed as well. If the County Commission were to incorporate these changes, it would bring the overall PUD in line with the recommendation from the P&Z Commission, while at the same time moving closer to the property owner's request. Also, concern was expressed at the March 18th hearing that there should be some sort of assurance that if an approval of this PUD plan is given, the property owner will actually follow through in abating the existing violations and truly come into compliance. That's the overall goal here. Staff has worked with the County Councilor to draft a proposed order of approval, which includes a specific timeline of progress to be maintained towards compliance. It also includes some specific instruction for action to be taken if the various benchmarks specified are not met by the required date. That's close to the end. So summarizing, staff is requesting that County Commission take one of the three following actions. That doesn't mean you can't come up with a fourth. But one, approve the PUD plan with the recommended changes presented, which are in line with the recommendation unanimously approved by the P&Z Commission. Or approve the PUD plan with any other specific changes that you all see fit to include. And the last one would be to reject the PUD proposal altogether and instruct staff and the County Councilor to pursue a mandatory legal injunction to abate the existing and ongoing violations present at this location. Happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, very, very good. Comments, questions from the commissioners?
So I do have a couple of things. So on the second to last slide that you had, staff has worked with the County Councilor to draft a proposed order of approval, which includes specific timeline of progress to be maintained.
Yes.
Do we have access to that? I haven't seen such a document. So
I can give you a copy of it if you'd like.
Yeah, you should have a copy somewhere. You got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But,
So I may have it here.
it looks like this.
Perfect.
The key thing is on page 3 on that, Mr. Jackson, in terms of putting teeth into the order if we choose to go that way.
Okay, so 90 days for proper surfacing of access drive. So I guess one of my concerns here is we have a PUD in the city of Ozark at Finley Farms that I understand different jurisdictions to city of Ozark, but still has a large gravel lot, 2 of them actually, parking in the orchard with gravel drive lanes and parking on grass. So why, other than 2 different districts or 2 different governing bodies, what's the difference?
I can maybe, their grass is actually that reinforced paver turf. I was there when they installed it to see how it's done.
So all the grass in the orchard?
Yes, all the grass parking on Finley Farms has that reinforced turf underneath the grass.
Okay.
The gravel, I'm not sure about though. I wasn't there for that one, but we were there as a demo. It was a demo installation.
As I drove through there today, there's no evidence of anything underneath the grass, I guess.
Yeah, it's meant to like, it's meant to look like grass, but it doesn't depress and it doesn't rut when it
Okay.
rains, yeah.
Well, that's just, one of my questions, if we have a governing body that allows in the PUD to have these gravel surfaces. I've been out, to this property in question and actually drove through there. As I drove through there, no dust was flying up around. There was no evidence, even though we've had some pretty good storms, there's no evidence of water runoff rutting out the gravel area. I know there was a concern in the planning and zoning hearing about, runoff into the creek, if you will, the floodplain there. And I saw no evidence of any erosion whatsoever, and we've had some pretty good storms, so I'm kind of curious as to, well, I guess technically that may have been debunked then, that we were going to have a lot of stormwater runoff through the property. But those are just a couple of the things that I've observed. I know there was a lot of question about traffic. I actually sat across the street for an hour and a half and saw 4 cars go into the property. So there's not a huge amount of traffic flowing in and out of there on a daily basis, at least not during the time frame I was there. That's all I have for now.
I might make a couple of comments. So I think one of the considerations that we have is our handicap accessibility. Our county is now going to be incurring quite a bit of expense to change the gazebo that we spent a lot of money to make it look nice for the community, but we didn't meet the handicap accessibility regulations, and so now we have people watching us, and we're going to be spending thousands of more dollars to make sure it's compliant. And I'm just not sure. My problem with a gravel parking lot is the fact that if you're pushing a wheelchair and that person is any size at all, it's going to be really hard to push a wheelchair through the gravel. So I'm not quite as worried about the water flow through the floodplain as I am about just having a problem, because there are people watching all over this state for any type of handicap violations, and I just don't think that, I don't want Mr. Estes to get involved in it, and I don't want the county to be involved in it either. I think we're gonna have a problem. I like the idea of a compromise. I want to hear from them, because I like the idea of a compromise, that if there's anything that we can cut out where they don't have to do more than is required, it's really a good thing. So we've already made a consideration this morning. I don't know if they knew that before that or not, but I believe that we're going the right way in trying to figure out how can we all get together. I'm not your shopper, Mr. Estes, but my wife is. My wife likes your place, and the traffic problem is not the problem. I wish they had more than 4 cars go by in an hour and a half and shop, okay? It's not during that time, and he'll get busier. I want him to get busier, but it's during those special times that I've taken my wife and my daughter-in-law and some grandchildren up, and I've watched a lot of cars, and they were really busy, and I hope they did good those days. There is a traffic problem during those times, and I don't know whether we've done anything to avoid it or not, but I mean, even from the intersection at that stoplight, it backflowed up to where people couldn't even go through the stoplight. I stayed over an hour at the church across the street watching people almost get hit trying to run back and forth, and it was just kind of, but we'll get better. We'll get better at organizing the flow of the exit, the entry, and stuff like that. We did have people trying to come out the exit and doing different things that when I saw the 2 events that I saw. But I like the compromise, and I like also the part that Ms. Miranda said about the pavers, that that was another option. That would that would qualify too, that is not probably as expensive as putting down some type of hard surface, other type of hard surface. I'd be curious as to what your thoughts are of what you just saw there. Is that something that could be acceptable, that we could go forward with?
No, I have no interest in paving that parking lot.
I'll speak to the ADA. We did move all the ADA stalls towards the building, so that we've got one adjacent, and then we've got 2 other stalls in the parking bays up near the building. And we have added ADA pathways from the ADA stalls to the building. So I know previously when we met on March 18th, we had one stall that was down in the lower parking lot. We've moved that up to the near the building, and we are showing the addition of ADA pathways. And you got to keep in mind that the PUD is not the design of that, but it's just meant to show that we will add those if approved, and at that point we would design those pathways to be actual ADA with grading and slope. But we have addressed that. As far as the compromise, that's up to Kyle on that. I think that our thing is you know, I know that the regulations say that you have to have a gravel parking lot, but the next section, the code section 7.2-H also says that the Board of Aldermen have the ability to relieve you of those requirements, given the scenario or the type of business out there. So I do think by amending the PUD, and the fact that this is 85% agricultural, that on the daily basis, the only people really using this parking lot are up near the building. And if you drop in on Google Earth, you'll see that the parking lot in the back, if you go into Street View, it's being used by his tractor, and it's being used by his skid steer and his farm equipment. So only on special events do you see him parking back there. 99.9% of the time it's up near the building where we are. We have provided hard parking stalls already. Most of those parking stalls are brick paver, and we're going to add the ADA. So, you know, that's kind of where we're at with that. And then, you know, I know Kyle's brought a lot of attention to himself on this project, which is, you know, maybe his fault, but Kyle's not the only person around town and in Christian County that has a gravel parking lot. After the March 18th meeting, I went home and I spent about 20-30 minutes on GIS, and I was trying just to find newer construction, because I know if you go too far back in the code that, you know, maybe the code doesn't exist. And I was able to find in 20 minutes, you know, 4 or 5 places that have been put in within late 2010s to early 2020s that aren't meeting this code. So and I can provide those examples if I need to, but you know, like I said, Kyle's brought attention to himself, but he's not an anomaly in Christian County.
Well, and like he said, like 90% of the time, like that lower parking lot, we literally use it for equipment storage. Like if you go out there right now, there's like 3 trailers parked there, a couple tractors, a couple skid steers, you know, and so, I mean, if we paved it, I mean, it would just wreak havoc on that asphalt. We would be replacing the asphalt every, you know, 2 years from running equipment across it. And so, and that's the main access point to that ag, not where he pointed out. The main access point into that ag is to the east through that parking lot to where I get into that field every day.
So, Mr. Todd, I mean, that's something I am worried about, but I don't know the answer, and he just kind of made a comment there. So we have other, I've not been on plain zoning long, so we have other areas in the county that have gravel parking lots that were have we ever has plain zoning made an exception before for people, or are they just?
We have made an exception for the area around a riding arena.
Made an exception around a riding arena?
Yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, when that kind of information is brought forward in a meeting, it's not a fact. I'd like addresses and so forth so we can investigate and respond to it. I mean, there are circumstances, even like this one, where a developer may pave the minimum required, which is what we're asking here, and then have additional areas which happen to be gravel associated with it. Also, the item in the regulation, item H, specifically, the Board of Adjustment may authorize on appeal a modification, reduction, or waiver from the foregoing requirements if it should find that in the particular case appealed, the peculiar nature of the residential business, trade, industrial, or other use, or the exceptional shape or size of the property, or other exceptional situation or condition would justify the action. We're talking about providing parking to commercial businesses and an event center. There's nothing peculiar about this.
Well, I think the peculiar thing is that, like, the main purpose of that property is agriculture. Like,
Well, the major
we added
investment
these
conflict
buildings,
is
you know,
the commercial.
we did this as a restoration of that farm to preserve it or whatever, but the main goal of that is still agriculture. You know, those things are just businesses to support that, you know, and so it's always gonna be a farm, as long as I have anything to say about it, and so.
I have a question I'd like to address.
Sure.
So, when did you first start building or remodeling structures on that property?
I'm gonna say sometime in 22.
2022?
I think that's right, because we finished we opened in December, we opened the store in December of 22.
Okay.
So it would have probably been early 22, yeah, probably early 22.
Did you get the necessary permits and meet the
We
zoning?
did, because when we started that, we were doing, like, it was just gonna be a restoration remodel project, so we pulled a remodel permit. And then when we went back, you know, I switched gears once we started sinking so much money into it, and it was getting so nice that I wanted to open it to the public and share it with the public. We didn't go back at that time and get any additional permits.
Why?
I mean, the ball was just rolling and I just didn't want to stop the progress.
Mhm.
But then, working with county, like after we all kind of got into it, you know, we filled out, actually Todd filled out 90% of the permits for me and sent them to me, and I finished them, and I submitted the permits to them, I think in March of 23, and they just sat on them since then.
They just what?
They've just sat on them since then.
We cannot issue a building permit when there's a conflict with the zoning regulation.
Which obviously we've been working towards that this whole time, like, since those meetings. But I feel like he's just set on the permits just to have something to hold over their heads.
No?
What would you say to someone who said it appears that you simply went ahead with anything you wanted to do without consideration of the codes and so forth, and that you're still basically doing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like once we got into it, we've been trying to move towards compliance, you know? And so, I mean, we didn't slow down anything to get that beforehand, but, you know, nature of construction, like, when the ball's rolling, I'm gonna keep the ball rolling, you know? Because otherwise that could have gone from a 8-month timeline to a 4-year timeline, you know? And I found in my various construction projects that, you know, it took me 2.5 years to build a mud house shopping center. And so I didn't want to get into those holdups and drag this project out any longer than what I needed to.
May I address the commission? Yes.
Good morning. I'm Michael White. Currently, I serve as the chairman of Planning and Zoning. One thing that our volunteer board does is to make sure everybody meets the guidelines. We had a person last year in Billings who built a storage facility who had to put down hard surface pavement at a cost of $200,000 extra. But you know what? He did it because that's what the regulations say. Did he want to do it? No. But he did it. We're not against Mr. Estes and his development. We are to assure that everybody has an even playing field, that everybody meets the requirements. I've been on the board since 17, 18, is that right? I have never seen us allow for this deviation from the regulations at all. And I think if we do this, if you allow this deviation, that says you have no confidence in what the commission board decides on. I know you're going to vote how you need to vote, but again, we are here to assure that everybody has an even playing field. We show no favoritisms. It's black and white. So, if you have any questions, ADA accessibility is a huge issue on this. And I know we've talked about this in the past meeting. I've been a licensed surveyor since 1994. You can't get a brick pavement, bricks to meet grade on ADA. I know you can't. So gravel you can't do it either. So that's a huge concern right there. There is a gang out there that teams up on people who don't have ADA accessibility. Fremont Hill Shopping Center, all the banks, they've all had to have hard surface pavement on their parking spots. So just be aware of that. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But again, we are just here to make sure everybody stays even.
Mr. White, I appreciate your comments. So you've served quite a while on planning and zoning.
Yes.
And I appreciate your service. So you've not seen an exception in the time that you've served?
Not that I can recall, no. I can't think of any. Believe
so
me.
It could be that Mr. Wynn, Chris, that he might have seen, for example, somewhere in the county, but there also could be a paved area that was already required too.
Oh.
I mean, my point is, if you're going to make an exception, you better be very careful, because once you make one exception, then everybody's going to want an exception. And so I think that's always a careful point that everybody needs to always consider.
Sure.
But then if we're allowing people to do things that's not illegal, and then you're trying to require someone else to do something that's legal, that's also an issue. But I don't find yet that that's the case. I think that we're trying to ask everybody to do the same things that are legal. And that's where I am at this point, is I think we're trying to be fair to everybody and keep everybody legal. And the problem, like Commissioner Blue said, is a kind of I don't know how many businesses in Christian County could operate over 14 months and not have proper permitting. I know when I built my 15,000 square foot warehouse out there, because of a water issue, and it was not mine, but created by the condos back behind, and they piped a great big pipe and stuck it in our yard. They thought, our property, they thought that we were creating a water problem. They wouldn't give me an occupancy permit for 6 months. And I had the insurance, I had the banks, I had everybody after me. And then I ended up having to spend $30,000 to reroute somebody else's big pipe that came from the condos that went into my property, reroute it to Garden Road to where I could get my permit, because everybody has to follow the regulations. And so that's kind of where I'm at, is I don't know of any other business in town that doesn't have a legal business license to operate on.
Right. A good example, I bought a building in Republic years ago, and city greeted me with a, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. By the way, you have to get this in compliance. I had to put a hard surface parking lot down just because the other person didn't. So I had to meet the guidelines in Republic. Again, that's a different animal. It's like Ozark being different than Christian County. So again, if the ordinance says you'll do this, you do this. It's pretty simple. So, Mr. Jackson had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, in your time on the Planning and Zoning Commission, how many PUDs have you processed?
I don't recall a whole lot. Yeah, maybe two, three.
Because PUDs allow for variance of the code.
Exactly, they're a different animal.
They're a totally different animal, and that's where my point is. With my experience in the city of Ozark, the Finley Farms PUD is basically you're going in and you're writing your own rule book for how you're going to handle that piece of property.
To a point.
To a point.
To a point.
You know, you're not going to adjust life safety. You're not going to adjust any of those pieces. ADA accessibility is going to have to be compliant. That's something that I've had a conversation with Mr. Estes about, because if he doesn't do what he needs to do ADA-wise, he's going to get sued. That's just the way it's going to be.
Well, we hope not, but it's a good chance.
I don't want anyone to be sued, but I know that there are a group of people across this country that go around using Google Maps or from the privacy of their car driving around trying to find violations so they can file a suit. So that's a concern that he needs to take into consideration. To me, this property being a PUD gives us the ability to kind of navigate where we are with it. It's an agribusiness property. If it's, a gravel parking lot's not gonna make sense in front of a Dollar Tree, it's not gonna make sense in front of Walmart, but in an agribusiness setting, it does make more sense.
But what about, does it make sense in front of a storage unit facility? There was no variance given on that.
That's not a PUD.
It's still
So,
requesting a
I think
variance.
that's where I'm looking.
And
at
I've been
it,
on
yeah.
this side, you know,
Sure.
on this side for a client. And again, I mean, I understand, we're not trying to shut anybody down, and I appreciate Mr. Wynn's efforts. But again, it's got to be a level playing field. I mean, if this allows to go through, what if I decide to buy a property and say, you know what, I don't want to put pavement down?
File a PUD and ask for the exception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, a PUD is not to circumvent the ordinances. It's to make minor adjustments to fit your need of that property. So, that's my opinion. Again, I've been on this side for clients, and I've argued PUDs. I've got them approved, and I've got them disapproved. So, again, they're a different animal.
Sure, absolutely.
So, again, I just wanted to just remind the commission that the board is not to shut anybody down. The board is to make sure everybody can develop and develop properly. So if there are other questions, or all, okay? Thank you.
Appreciate those comments.
I need that information off.
I have one other comment too, in the form of a story, and I promise not to be long with this story. You may be familiar with the name Norman Vincent Peale. You may not be. But Norman Vincent Peale tells a story about when he was a boy, and he was standing alongside a fence smoking a cigar, knowing that he should not have been doing that. He saw his father coming up, and he looked for something to distract his father. Saw on the fence behind him a sign about a circus coming to town. Took that cigar, put it behind his back, and said, "Dad, can I go to the circus?" To which his father responded, "Norman, don't ever make a request with a smoldering disobedience behind your back." I will not vote to support this because I think you have a smoldering disobedience behind your back, and I think if we voted to do it, you could still go ahead and do just exactly what you want to do and assume that we wouldn't do anything on that. This should not have been going on this long, and I would make a motion that we would go ahead with the stipulations that were made by our Planning and Zoning Commission, which I think made bona fide efforts, even though the smoldering disobedience has been there for a long time. I would make that motion that we offer that as a solution, and at the same time that we approve order number 04-04-2024 of the County Commission prepared by our attorney, which then gives the stipulations of what will happen if this is not brought into conformance with our regulations. So that's my motion.
Okay, so we
So
do have.
real quick, like that you're looking at, like, we've never even seen it. I've never seen that piece of paper, my attorney's never seen that piece of paper, like, so to prove that and attach it to the PUD, like, I mean, I feel like that's.
You mean you're talking about the new change, the compromise?
No, that, but like what he voted,
The order that's
like,
been drafted by our attorney?
Yeah.
You've never seen it?
No, I've never seen it, my attorney's never seen it. So
Yeah,
if
that's-
we approve it, if you approve it to attach that, like, I mean.
The commission doesn't share its orders in advance.
Well, I understand.
That's silly.
I just feel like
It doesn't seek approval of its orders.
I don't deny that, but you know, when we're gonna attach an order, with legal jargon attached to it of any form or fashion coming from our attorney, that's gonna make stipulations on the property owner, I would not approve of that without, you know, modifying these dates. I mean, you got 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, attached to this. He hasn't had the opportunity to see it. We're gonna put it in his hands. He's gonna have to, you know, contact his attorney. There's gonna be a time frame associated with that. So I don't agree with that.
If I was good with it, I mean, do you even know those timeframes are obtainable, you know what I mean, as far as like in construction, are you gonna be able to do this and get work done like that?
I'm perfectly willing to separate the two issues. I understand what you're saying. I think there's validity in that. So I would just modify my motion to take up the issue before us directly, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission report and recommendation. That's case number 2023-0327. And simply at this point, you might, Todd, need to help me know how to do this, but simply to affirm the Planning and Zoning Commission staff report and recommendation to the County Commission as it has been presented. Make that the motion for the moment.
Okay, we've got a new motion. Yes.
Just for the record, if I can, I made that statement about other places in Christian County that were non-conforming. I don't want to just state something and not have fact, as Todd mentioned. I'm just going to give you a couple that I found really quick. The first one being 1042 Rose Hill Road. That appeared to me based on, and they're only as good as the aerials are. So I mean, maybe they brought it up to conformance since the last aerial was taken. But this building, or this a place appears to have been built in 2019. They do have a little bit of concrete parking up near the building, which is something that we would be willing to add. As we mentioned, we would add ADA. And then another place I found interesting was actually the Christian County Road Department in Sparta. That appears to be about 90% gravel, including the driveways.
Hi, I need to speak here. My name is Chris Summers, and I'm one of the commissioners for the Ozark Special Road District. The Ozark Special Road District has jurisdiction on Fremont. I'm curious to wonder, we submitted a 2 or 3 page letter to the commissioners, each one of you, in regards to what we needed to address. My other problem is that your March 18th meeting, Ozark Special Road District was never notified that we needed to be at that meeting, specifically because at the December meeting I was there, and I specifically asked is that if this comes before this Planning and Zoning Commission again, I would like to be notified because it's our road. Now, if the Commission and Planning and Zoning doesn't really want to respect a road district, then I would ask that Christian County kindly take over Fremont from CC all the way down to 14, and the road district doesn't have to be bothered by this particular project. But what I see of years of accident investigation is that this could be a catastrophe waiting to happen. I don't want to be commissioner when the family of 4 gets killed on Fremont Road from a 45-mile-an-hour car traveling northbound taking out a left turn when there's no clearly left turn lane because nobody's really done a decent traffic study. Would you not agree to that?
I mean, we did a Tier 1 traffic study as we were requested to do.
Okay,
did
you go out and do events, when you had events, as to how many cars are actually coming?
That's not part of a Tier 1 traffic study. As I mentioned at that meeting in December, that a Tier 1 traffic study was not going to answer the questions that you had. And that was what was requested of us, and that's what we did.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't going to answer anybody's questions. It was basically just, I don't know, fluff, as far as I'm concerned, is what it was. But a lot of the other stuff and projects and events that are going around, especially for residential areas, that are being brought in Christian County, we're getting these traffic counts where we're going out and counting. I mean, we're specifically counting as far as, you know, particular days when school is in session, the school bus, the amount of parents taking their kids to school, their activities. And I just think we did not do due diligence here for the citizens of Christian County that are traveling on Fremont Road, specifically going north and southbound on that particular roadway. We did not, because we should have done our due diligence, done the proper traffic study. Let's find out what the numbers are. Look, if roadway improvements need to be made, then they need to be made, okay? But the road district, I can't pay for it, and I'm not bringing the business either. So, and we all know that Fremont Road eventually, it's probably going to be a 4-lane divided highway, if not at least a 4-lane with a center turn median in it. I mean, because that's what the OTO is requiring here, you know, in their 25-year plan, at least from what I've seen. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm asking, but it's like we got to do better. We just have to. I mean, Jerry and I and Barbara Hoover, we're all trying our darndest with the road district to bring things up to date and make sure everybody's doing their due diligence as far as where you're putting a driveway and this and that, you know. We just got done with one on River Bluff where a guy just wanted to come in and put his residential driveway, and you had 4 big trees that were going to be blocking the view obstruction. Well, no, the tree's got to come out. Well, that's going to cost me money. Well, I'm really sorry, but that's part of doing business. That's just it. And in this particular thing, I just think we got to do some due diligence here. We really do. The traffic study, I think, is the best one, is absolutely required. You yourself, I heard you say it at that planning and zoning meeting, is that about how people were crossing the road and you saw some near misses. And my part of my thing was is that I agree with Miranda, is that if you're going to have people out there directing traffic, they got to know what the heck they're doing. You just can't put a traffic wand in somebody's hand and say, yeah, go out and direct traffic. No, it doesn't work for that. It doesn't even work for that for police officers. We had to go through 20 hours of traffic control when I got trained. So I just think I would ask the commission to think about the due diligence that needs to be done here, please.
Yeah, and Mr. Summers, so
Yes, sir.
one of the things that, you know, I asked about, because you weren't there, I said, well, where is the special road district? You weren't there at that meeting. And I asked you, we did notify them? I mean,
we didn't notify them directly. It was clear at the end of the meeting, on
At the meeting
December
we was at.
18th, that this would be taken up again on March 18th. We did post the agendas and so forth.
Do we have just an email folder of concerned citizens that would be interested in anything, everything, planning and zoning commission related, so that when we have an agenda, that can just be mass sent out to everybody?
We do not operate that way. We follow the state statute as far as notification.
Yeah, I understand what the state statute is, but I always know that there's things that we can always do better. And a simple email notification, if there are interested parties, any of the interested additional taxing districts may be curious about things, whether it be the school special road district, and just having a simple folder where of email addresses where we can just automatically send them, regardless if it's going to be in their jurisdiction, it would just pop up in their inbox for them. I think would be a good measure that we could incorporate.
We can look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Additionally, the memo that we got from Toth, Miranda reviewed, it was supplied to the P&Z commissioners. The concerns were addressed at that meeting.
And I think it's a unique thing as we navigate through, you know, being a lifelong resident of Christian County and traveling and navigating Fremont Road a lot in my years. A lot of structures have been built in that corridor. A lot of homes have been built in that corridor, and I don't know that it's fair to try to penalize the last guy in with making a huge amount of improvements when subdivision after subdivision after subdivision to the south have been added and no improvements were ever made at that time, whether they be turn lanes or between Rolling Prairie, Cali Springs, Ozark Heights, Eagle Springs, there's a ton of traffic that's been dumped onto that road.
I would agree with you, but what I've recently heard from not our engineer, but other engineers that are outside working for these developments is, the comment is, well, it's the last man in pays the piper. Yeah, and I was like, wow, really? Why?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, but I was shocked to hear that. I was like, I would have thought we would have been all doing the proper thing up until this point and getting things done, but no.
And I compliment you guys on the action that you've taken, you know, to start putting in place these protocols, you know, that, you know, whatever that impact is, but, you know, when you can't really take into consideration 1,000 homes that are driving northbound and then penalize the last guy and make him pay the van.
I understand that,
That's
but
hard to take, you know, from me as just an everyday average citizen,
Yeah.
especially maybe even the property owner in question.
But I heard you guys also comment about lawsuits. Don't think there wouldn't be one coming from a family of 4 or somebody getting killed on that road, because they would.
Mr. Morris?
Guarantee it.
I apologize that I had you step out a moment ago. Is my motion still on the
Yeah,
floor?
it's still on the
Died
floor.
for lack of a
No,
second?
no, we haven't done a second.
Okay, I would recommend that we go ahead with the consideration of the motion and put that to rest one way or the other.
I just make one comment too, Mr. Wynn. So I wrote down those locations. You know, what I learned in the short time I've been in the county, in this position is, I've lived in the county a long time too. I'm not lifelong in the county, about almost 50 years now. My wife a lot longer than that, so we've got about 120 years. We're not that old, but we've got that many years in the county experience. So anytime that we hear of a violation, the way the county works, it seems to me, is we don't have enough employees, inspectors, to go out and just drive 700 miles a day from one end to the other end of the county and see who's violating things and who's not violating things. And so I took those. I'll take those as serious things that our inspectors need to go out and look at and see if this place over here at 1042 Rose Hill Road, we'll actually even go over there and look at the county at our place and see if we're not, because we all need to be in compliance everywhere. But the thing is, until someone complains, someone may get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And my point is Kyle's brought a lot of attention to himself, so that's why he's being held to the fire.
I don't think
and these other people that could have been there for a lot longer. But I just want, my point isn't that these people are getting away with it, it's just that it's not unheard of that there's gravel parking lots in Christian County.
Well, not from my standpoint is that he and I have a problem. My problem is, there is a problem though. There's a problem that I don't know of anybody else yet that's operating a business 14 months without permits.
Yeah.
I think that is a black eye on both eyes for us.
Absolutely.
And for them.
And that's the PUD allows us to get those building permits, because right now he can't get those building permits because he doesn't have proper zoning. So by passing the PUD, there's the language in there that forces him to get said building permits. You know, like you mentioned, he had submitted building permits, and like Todd said, he can't approve those building permits because the zoning doesn't match. So one way or another, by denying this, he still can't get building permits. By approving it, one way or another, whether you do it with the recommendations or you do it without the recommendations, or however you choose to do it, he's got to get an approved rezone to get building permits. So then that's the action that you guys will take today.
Is that?
That is true. I'd also like to add 1042 Rose Hill Road is Sandcrest specialized trailers. So they do have a significant area of gravel parking lot, which falls under item I, allowing for that, because they're using the
Their
type
drive
of
aisles as well?
equipment and vehicles that allow for that.
So ag equipment doesn't allow for that, but trailers allow for that.
And I'll add, they built this storage facility to the west and they had to put down the hard surface pavement.
Right. Once again, I think it's just getting missed. That's why we're doing a PUD, not a.
Well, we need to get real about this. The concern is with all these buildings that are for a commercial nature that have been constructed and are serviced by these parking areas and drive aisles, not the agriculture. So that, I think that relates to the
Okay. So
cigar.
Any other comments?
I have none.
Okay. Yes.
Can we have the motion restated?
Yes, we're going to do that, because we're ready now to go ahead and see if we can get a vote. So you want to go ahead and restate the motion?
I make the motion that we follow the Planning and Zoning Commission staff report and recommendation to the Commission, case number 2023-0327, offering to this modified approach to getting the property and whatever to get that into compliance. Todd, do I need to add anything to what I just said?
I believe you've covered.
So that's
Are we attaching the order to the rezone
No.
or are
No,
we
this is no
I
order.
pull that away from that. That'll be a separate issue, and we'll have time to.
The order doesn't get attached to anything. Things get attached to orders.
Yeah, okay. So we're not dealing with the order. Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
I would not second that motion, but I would supply a separate motion that we approve the PUD with the agribusiness intent implied that the gravel drives and that the parking be permitted. Either way you go here, I mean, mean, we have a business that's out there that's operating, they requested a PUD. It's not any different than the Finley Farms PUD in nature. That's an agribusiness intent. They've got garden, they've got an orchard, they've got all this stuff. I think the intent is the same in the business concept and model. And with my motion, you would have the ability to force Mr. Estes to get his necessary permits to conduct business legally.
I really do. My Robert's Rules of Order are slightly underneath this, so I do not know that, I don't know how this works when I've made a motion and you offer an alternative motion. Do we consider your alternative motion first and then go back to the
I
original?
believe you have to strike a motion to bring a new motion to the table. You can't have two motions on the table.
All right, then my intent is to provide a motion. I will not second yours.
Okay.
So you guys are not willing to, you're not willing to do what Finley Farms did and use, like what Ms. Miranda said, you're not willing to do the a paver system. Now you don't even know there's a hard surface underneath there. You're not willing to.
Well, they've just done that in their grass parking areas, not their gravel
We're
parking
talking
areas.
about, I'm talking about just the part that we've come up with a compromise and it looks like cut off 30% or more of a hard surface. So we're still not anywhere close to any kind of agreement other
The cost on those impervious pavers that they're suggesting is exponential, and unfortunately, I'm not a billionaire like Johnny Morris to put that kind of system in, so.
You know, it seems like we're kind of at a hard spot because I agree with Commissioner Blue. And I'm just tempted to go ahead and second that because but I don't like to hear the fact that how are we ever going to ever resolve this? I'm trying to figure out what the final resolvement is because he needs to get in compliance. He needs to get in compliance. And we've wasted too long with his attorney and our attorney, and nobody else has got to do that in this county that I know of. And so if we go ahead and do this, then how is he going to get in compliance if we don't have the zoning where he can get in compliance?
And, you know, I think we need to remember that the commission doesn't seem, to me, to be in a position where it has to negotiate anything. The regulations are what they are, and the applicant here has been in violation of those regulations for a very long time. So I believe you can act from a position of authority here as opposed to one where you're trying to appease something.
Okay.
I just kind of real quick on that. I mean, I feel like we submitted a PUD as it sits, and I feel like that's what needs to be voted on, my PUD. If you want to turn down my PUD, I think that's fine. But to add conditions to it, then it's just going to drag it on longer, because then we'll appeal to the Board of Adjustments, and it's just going to keep trucking. You know what I mean? So if you want to deny my PUD, and then we go back, maybe work with the county to come up with a different solution, like that's fine in my opinion. But to approve a PUD that we didn't submit and are wanting you to vote on, like I don't really feel like that's a great intention. I don't know. I just don't think that's.
Which would lead me to the other option, which is to reject it and instruct our county counselor to pursue legal action, which we probably should have done a year and a half ago, and allow a judge to determine what must be done and not be done.
I'm fine to modify my motion a second time, contingent upon what you said, Mr. Estes, to just reject the PUD that was presented by the, whatever the name of the organization is.
Windmill.
Windmill Holdings LLC, Kyle Estes, to just reject that PUD.
So there's the motion.
So I make the motion that we reject the PUD that was supplied to us by Windmill Holdings LLC.
I'll second that motion. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes.
I mean,
I'm a nay. I think the zoning request was appropriate as presented, so
Okay.
I'd be a nay.
Thank you. 2-1. We got 2-1. And now, do we need to make a motion to accept this order? Or do we need to?
No, we need to wait on it.
Allow them time to see the
We
order?
gotta talk to the man again.
I think we would like some order with instruction for how to proceed.
I think we'll have to come up with given the current situation at that point.
Yeah, I mean, because this is something we can appeal to the Board of Adjustment now, right?
You certainly could, but the county reserves its right to also pursue compliance via our other
You
legal
can
options.
try to be in compliance, like a submitted billing. You filled them out. You literally filled them out. And I submitted them over a year ago. So,
I think we
to
have
say
to
I'm not
do
trying to be in
the
compliance isn't like, I mean, I'm trying to be in compliance, you know?
I think we can demonstrate otherwise.
Yeah, okay, so I think we've got that down. So I think, we have an order, and I've looked at the order. I know Commissioner Blue's looked at the order. You must not have seen the order.
I've reviewed it since we've been sitting here, yes.
Okay, because we've had the material in time. And so I would just say that we've done what we need to do today. They will get information. Our attorney will be sending them information. We will have to still vote on this order at the next meeting, or not, are we?
There's no other meetings.
We don't
We're
have
done.
to
We
do
don't have to
anything,
vote,
but-
so we can just go ahead and execute that with our attorney, right?
Which, real quick, that order that you're talking about, like, if you have timelines to come into compliance with a PUD
Yeah.
that wasn't approved.
Right, there's
So,
no order, there's no order to
The
approve
order-
anymore.
Yeah,
Okay.
the order doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, it doesn't exist.
The order disappeared.
Okay, disappeared, okay, all right, okay. Then this case is over then, right?
Right.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll start the next case if we want to. back in session. We have one more case left in planning and zoning. Mr. Scott, are you doing this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll let you go ahead.
This will be case number 2024-0025. The applicant is Lawrence Bowen. The current zoning is A1 agricultural, and the request is for an AR agricultural zoning.
Is the applicant here?
No.
I don't believe so.
Are you guys opposing to this? No. No, you're just here.
Yeah, here.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Because normally we don't go forward unless we have the person here that's supposed to be here. But I guess we can go ahead.
I will note I did call him Monday afternoon and inform him, because I know originally the meeting was Tuesday, and informed him that it would be moved to Thursday morning at our office.
And there's no you haven't had opposition in the.
There was some comment at P&Z, which I'll mention, but
Okay.
I haven't had any specific
Since
phone
then?
calls or
Since
or
then?
letters or anything since then. Either way on this case.
I'm usually not real excited about hearing a case without the applicant present to ask questions, so that was why I made that comment.
Yeah, I mean, it's. We
But
don't want
go
to get.
ahead, I
Well,
guess.
I don't know. Yeah, my process is that if we get all the way through here and now we have a question or a concern, we don't have anybody to talk to. So we're here, and we've been here for a while, and so I'm okay, Commissioner Jackson, if you want to table this, then Scott will reschedule it. I'm okay with this too.
Please don't table, if you'd like to postpone it.
Postpone, I'm using the wrong word.
Table is a term to set it aside and never pick it up again.
No, we don't want to do that. No, we don't want to do that.
It just requires more work.
We want to postpone it. We want to postpone it because the applicant is not here.
I will not object to postponing it. I understand what you're saying. As I have looked at this, he's trying to, what he's doing, because my wife and I have just been through this process. He's doing estate planning and trying to get things in order for that. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'd be ready to go ahead and consider that. And follow, again, it was unanimously, I presume you were there, Mr. Morris, unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on March the 18th. So I have no objection to go ahead. I don't have no objection to not. I'm just.
Was there opposition?
There was a couple of comments made at the Planning and Zoning meeting. I'll go ahead and get to that slide.
The opposition's not here as well, so.
No. And I will mention or make note as well that there really is nothing in our code or state statutes that requires an applicant to be present or a representative for the applicant to be present for their meeting. Ultimately, the Planning and Zoning Board and the Commission are still looking at the facts of the case and the public input to make a determination on if the zoning being requested is appropriate for that parcel. That is the ultimate question. That does not necessarily require the property owner or a representative to be present.
On the public comment section, it says one person spoke in opposition to the request. Questions posed were satisfactorily answered during the meeting, nor the comment was made. So,
Okay, let's proceed.
Okay.
Go ahead. Let's proceed.
So the location of the property is actually more tract B, I apologize, not A, at 2211 Reed Road in Sparta. Nearby land uses are primarily large tract wooded areas and some single family dispersed residential. The nearby zonings, as you can see, again, primarily A1. There are some R1 and some AR in the vicinity, especially right across the road there. The request is to change the zoning classification of an approximate 9.36 acre parcel from A1 to AR, that it can be lawfully utilized for agricultural residential purposes, as well as all other lawful purposes under the AR zoning. The applicant did state that they would like to potentially subdivide this parcel for estate planning purposes. A little bit of background on this site. It is currently occupied by a single-family residential structure with some accessory structures. The property does have a private drive that it's being used for access. That private drive is accessing other tracts off to the north and west of this parcel. On my count, as many as 4. The particular tract in question was created from a minor subdivision and then a couple of lot line adjustments that kind of got it to what it looks like today over the last several years. As far as our land use plan, our future land use map does designate this as appropriate for agricultural or dispersed residential uses. As far as compatibility with surrounding land uses, it is adjacent to larger undeveloped tracts and single-family homes, so it should be relatively compatible there. Connectivity, again, it does not have direct frontage on Reed Road. It is accessed by a private easement. No specific provisions for landscaping or buffering. Any of that would fall under when they apply for their permits or do development. Same thing with building design, nothing particularly proposed. It would be run through the building inspections department for permitting. Access, a 50-foot easement from Reed Road. And utility services, there is a well and septic in place for the existing single-family structure. If there was to be any new residence built, those would all have to be permitted appropriately through DNR or the health department, depending on what they were trying to get put in. No anticipated stormwater or groundwater impacts due to rezoning, and there are no known or mapped sinkholes or floodplains on this property. So this request would allow for a smaller tract size of the parcel than what's currently allowed. It would allow them to go down to potentially 3 acres instead of a 5-acre minimum, and potentially allow them to further subdivide the parcel in the future. Staff does recommend approval of this rezoning request. The only comment or caveat I would make, that tract does appear to be serving more than 3 parcels. The easement, the access easement, so per our regulations there may need to be some roadway improvements done if they move forward with subdividing that tract.
So the tract we're looking at is what? What's the acreage on it?
9.36 I think is what's listed. Yes, 9.36 acres.
The request would allow for a smaller 3-acre tract size.
So currently they're kind of stuck in trying to subdivide it because they've got a 5-acre minimum, and then our A1 regs also require that, you know, if you make 2 5s you have to have a 10-acre tract remaining to try to preserve that agricultural aspect. Taking this to an AR zoning would allow them to go down to 3 acres, and it doesn't have that requirement of having a leftover 10, so to speak. So it would let them take that 9.3 and potentially split it into as many as 3 3-acre tracts. I don't believe that's this applicant's intent. He was looking at like a 3 and a 6 approximately.
Okay. And both for you and Miranda, is there any issue right now with that private road that's apparently surfacing different properties?
So right now it's fine, and with the rezoning it would stay fine. When he comes in, if he comes in to subdivide, at that point he will need to bring the road up.
And would he need to bring the road up only as it relates to the 9 acres he has, or would it apply to others that had been serviced? But I'm assuming that I don't know. I'm just asking.
It could be, so the part that serves 3 or more parcels will need to be brought up. It can be, and I'm not sure about this area, but there's the potential to have a private drive come off the back and just service one.
Okay.
So we have to look at, I guess, everything to the north, the west, and the south, and see how that works
Okay.
out.
But there's nothing automatically that's a problem right now?
Not right now.
No,
Okay.
not with the rezoning.
All right, I'm good.
And then P&Z did vote unanimously
Right.
to approve the rezoning request.
Okay. All right, very good. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will take a motion to approve this.
I'd make that motion.
Okay, we have a
Second that
motion.
motion.
And a second, all in favor, say aye.